Hello, I'm Mike Adams and I'm Chief Executive of Purple. And today we are talking about top tips for frontline staff serving disabled customers as part of our e-tutorial around the disabled customer and their experience. So in terms of frontline staff serving disabled customers, the graph here shows a number of things that are the principles behind your approach. Firstly, make no assumptions. Take away your preconceived ideas and just put them to one side and be open in terms of your approach. If you're a frontline member of staff, respond to the customer need. The customer generally knows best and will ask you the information that they want, and in the same way will ask you for support if they need it. Don't try to second guess, and if they don't know what they're looking for, generally they will ask and they will seek your advice and guidance in getting the answers. In a previous module we've talked about using appropriate language and etiquette, and I just want to re-emphasize the importance of context. It's about the meaning behind what you say, not necessarily what you say. And if it's a bit clunky, a bit clumsy, then 99% of disabled people will be absolutely fine and would much prefer you to do that than to swerve the conversation altogether. And we talk about the number of disabled people, 13.9 million disabled people, as an homogenous group, which of course we are not. We are all individuals with different preferences, different styles, and so we say to frontline staff, just treat us as an individual. I am Mike, who happens to have a disability. I am not a disabled person who happens to be called Mike. And that's a really good principle to follow. Be sensitive and respect. And in your training on customer service, all that you have learned applies to your approach to disabled people. And that's in terms of sensitivity, respect to customers. It's also about opening and having open communication and dialogue, not just telling customers, but talking to customers and answering questions. And I think perhaps one that is probably more unique to disabled customers is remove identified barriers. And the example I use, particularly in places where there is an accessible toilet, one, make sure that if there is a key that's needed, it is very clear where to get that key, and the key is always there. I cannot tell you how many times I've been into a shopping centre and needed to use the accessible facilities to go to the concierge to be told the key has been lost. And actually I cannot tell you the number of times that I have used accessible facilities to open it up and then realise I can't get in because all the cleaning equipment is stored because it's convenient. So it's about thinking, it's about removing identified barriers that will prevent you delivering a good customer experience. So, for frontline staff, some top tips. First and foremost, when a customer comes in, as far as possible, smile and ask, how can I help you? It's really important. It is a positive statement, but it also is in some ways a neutral statement because it allows the individual to either say, I'm absolutely fine, thank you very much, or to say, well, actually, thank you for asking. I do experience anxiety in crowded places. It's quite crowded in here and it's quite noisy. Would you mind if we step 10 paces to the left where it looks a bit quieter because I need to ask you a question? Tip 2, Listen very carefully and make sure you can be seen. If you're not sure what the customer is saying, rather than second guess, confirm by summarizing and repeating. And this is really important for people who have speech impediments, and it's really important that you don't end the sentences for them and that you're patient. It's just be patient, relax, and let the person talk. And this goes to our top 3. Wait patiently for a response. It may be that the customer is thinking about it. It may be that they're formulating their thoughts. They may be anxious about what their response is. So don't feel like you're in a rush and you'll be annoyed with them. Just give them the space to be able to think through their answer and answer the question. Tip 4. You work in customer service or you're on the front line. What you do, your raison d'etre, is offering assistance without calling attention to the disability itself. So for example, say, I can offer you a seat nearby without needing to point out so you don't have to walk so far. Let the customer choose the right adjustment. Let the customer choose the right accommodation. And what's really interesting from our experience is the number of people with long-term health conditions who, by the time they've walked around the shop and by the time they get to a till, they need to sit down before they wait in line and go through that process. And it's interesting to see as you move into Christmas, although that's in quite a long way as we sit here today, how many businesses, how many shops say for health and safety reasons they're removing the chairs. And what we've seen from our research is that means for a lot of people they just leave their shopping and walk out. So think about the accommodations, think about what's reasonable. Don't put in place artificial barriers under the banner of health and safety, but clearly always respect health and safety rules and regulations for all customers. Tip 5. Don't make assumptions about the type of disability or the adjustments needed. There is a real difference between having an awareness of different disabilities and people are genuinely interested in mental health and autism and Asperger's. But there's a real difference between having an awareness and knowing some of the do's and don'ts and top tips like we're talking about today, and becoming real medical experts. And to put into context, I've been amazed in the last couple of weeks how many of my friends and people I meet have suddenly become absolute experts on coronavirus and the pandemic. So I urge you to don't make assumptions, treat people as if they are individuals and make sure they are individuals and ask them the questions. Do not try to second guess. Tip 6, use appropriate language and etiquette. And I'm not going to go through this again because within this e-tutorial, we have done a whole section on top tips around language and etiquette. So if you're watching this, you have access to all those modules. I'll ask you to either go back and find it and watch, or if you can't remember them, go back, fast forward, and just check that you are really clear on some of the principles. And again, I will repeat and continue to repeat, it is about context rather than exactly what you say, but the meaning behind it. And that brings us to the end of this section, and I very much hope that you as frontline staff have been able to take away some top tips and hints about serving disabled customers. And just a reminder, You will have had some training as part of your organisation's induction or ongoing training. Everything that you learnt applies. What we're talking about is additional top tips for dealing with disabled customers. So thank you very much.